Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. Today, I have the privilege of speaking to Rob Hughes. As a former vice president of sales and marketing in the manufacturing industry, executive coach for business owners and entrepreneurs across North America, and now the CEO of a marketing agency, Rob understands the struggle many brands face when it comes to marketing. He wanted to find a better way to get his message across to clients who would care, and he did. Now, Rob is on a mission to help small businesses accelerate growth by clarifying their message through Hughes Integrated, a StoryBrand certified marketing agency. And as an esteemed marketing keynote speaker and podcast host, his sessions on marketing and branding are engaging, interactive, and inspiring. Rob, welcome to Might in Motion.
Mariana, thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to be here.
This is interesting. People notice I am in a different space today, and we may have a little bit of lag between Rob and I because apparently Georgia and Michigan, there is like a time warp. So bear with us today.
It's okay. We can make it work. We'll make it work today. You bet.
So, Rob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into marketing, and what inspired you to create Hughes Integrated?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do so. Mariana, we have an enormous problem today in the market. And the problem is this: a lot of really good businesses are wasting an enormous amount of money on ineffective marketing. They've got ideas for what they do. They, of course, are masters of their technical service that they provide. But when it comes to talking objectively and clearly about that service or product, they just don't know how to do that with content. I felt that same struggle in the manufacturing world from 2000 to 2010. And I would have people calling on me all the time as I was overseeing business development and sales. I'd have people calling on me, agencies, in fact, calling on, asking if they could sell me a website. And I'd say, well, what difference does a new website make? I mean, I don't even know. And can you prove to me the value, the ROI of the thing? And you know what? When it came to push come to shove, they couldn't. It could be pretty, but they couldn't prove attribution. And so that began a bit of the impetus for me to create what has now become my marketing agency with Hughes Integrated. Everything that's kind of centered in our ethos is about proving outcomes, proving results, if you will. So when we launch a website, we have performance analytics and reports that we review with our clients because we believe it's just plain wrong for you to invest money on marketing that's not working. And so we want to prove that with our clients. And so we've structured our entire agency around that ethos.
So you're a StoryBrand certified. What does StoryBrand mean for somebody like me in transportation? I know nothing about marketing. Help me understand what that means.
Well, when you hear the word story, many people think we got to learn how to tell our company's story better. That's not actually what this whole thing's about. Story in and of itself is nothing new. It's been around for thousands, but the best told stories follow a consistent framework. Story is nothing more than a method of communication, powerful method of communication. And all stories follow a formula. There's a main character that encounters a problem, meets a guide who gives them a plan, tells them to do something with that plan that could result in failure, but hopefully brings about success. And so if you apply the tools and the method of well-told story, which I teach to my clients, we use with our clients, this actually can apply anywhere that words are used to communicate. So even inside of an organization, do you have to sell the ideas to your upline manager or supervisor, downline to your teams that you're leading? Do you ever need to use word to compel and kind of galvanize that group and inspire them to action? If so, the method and process of story is absolutely applicable to you. And I'm here to talk.
So many times in corporate America, you're tasked with putting together a PowerPoint to do that, to tell a story. And sometimes the story gets lost in too many words on the page, too many mathematical equations, all of that. Do you have any tips or tricks that our listeners might be able to use from a marketing background that could help them sell their project idea or share their success of a project?
Absolutely. Listen here, gang. Like I mentioned to you, the hero's journey. Character encounters a problem, meets a guide. That's kind of the opening scene of any well-told film or story that you've seen in the theaters. So keep that in mind as you're beginning those PowerPoint. Who's the audience? Who is your main character? And when you've identified them, the simple question you got to ask yourself is, what does that main character want? Is the main character the board of advisors that you're with? Is the main character the executive leadership? Who is the main audience that you're crafting this message for? And what do they want? Now, once you've identified that, the next step is problem. And really, the problem is the story. The problem is the barrier, the roadblock, the gap that's preventing the main audience from getting what they want. And listen, the problem is the story. If I told you the next action adventure film was coming out in the theater and the whole thing was about the main character taking her daughter out for ice cream, is that a movie you'd go see? Probably not. But if on the way to ice cream, her daughter gets kidnapped and she has to single-handedly rescue her daughter, now would you see that film? Well, what changed? There's a problem. The problem is the story. It's clearly defined. So if you're going into creating a PowerPoint presentation, if you're going into creating any sort of a document that's going to communicate, you need to clearly define the problem up front in advance. Just a few moments ago, we started this recording. Where did I begin? We have an enormous problem. The problem is what? Many businesses are wasting money on marketing. And what that does, when you clearly define the problem of your next presentation, your speech, whatever the thing is, it anchors kind of the rest of the talk in that bucket. People will file you in their mind, the Rolodex of their mind, based on the problem they think you solve. And so when you clearly articulate that in your keynote, in your presentation, in your slide deck, you open with that, you're anchoring the rest of that talk and everything can fall in line. A lot of fumbling happens when we just start going and not really talking about anything and just start talking about different stories and my uncle and this and that. Forget it. You got to anchor it with what is the problem? The problem is the story. Hit it between the eyes.
I love that. I love that concept of there is an issue and you're here to resolve it. And so you're really tuning into the what's in it for them mindset, which is super important, right? How do you think of marketing as it relates to company culture? So many times, like, you want to understand a brand, but you really want to understand the root of that brand. Do you leverage company culture in marketing? And if so, how?
Well, anywhere words are used, first and foremost, of course. I mean, marketing is really nothing more than an exercise in memorization. So the best slogans that you remember from your childhood days, the best commercials, you could probably still sing some of the jingles that came along with them. Marketing is nothing more than an exercise in memorization. And so if you take that mentality into your corporate culture, what are the things that you want to be the battle cry of your team, of your people? Core values, vision and mission statement. These are the glue, the DNA that tie your people together. My question for you, listener, as you're tuning into this is, do you document all of those DNA components of your core culture and put them in a 3-ring binder on a shelf? Or are you dynamically weaving them into each of your conversations, talks, meetings, agendas, and, using some of the framework of what is, of your core values, if that's the thing that defines your actual culture and DNA, are you posting it places? Are you talking about it? And when you're describing it, how are you describing it? You can even use this problem first formula in all of those. So if you have a core culture of integrity, let's say that that's a core value for you. Problem with many organizations is that there's above, in front of the curtain and behind the curtain, and 2 different cultures competing. At ABC Corp, we don't do that. We keep things transparent, authentic, so that you can know that we're operating with integrity. Boom. I'm using the messaging framework to communicate a core value because I'm anchoring it in what that value is here to prevent and fight. So that's just a way that the messaging toolkit can be used, even for corporate culture.
So you help a lot of businesses with their marketing. What is something that you bring to the table and your team that's different than others?
Well, when businesses are trying to do marketing, our experience, we work a lot in the B2B space. So a lot of professional service businesses and so on. Many times, the businesses themselves, even the marketing teams within the company, they are so close to the product or service. They have a hard time being objective and gaining enough distance to know how to talk about objectively what they do with the people that matter most, their client and prospect. And so the unique value prop that we kind of bring in is we can come and enter that company and really understand what it is that they're trying to do, but to simplify. That's the key. You got to simplify the message. If you confuse, you lose. But when you have a clear brand message, a clear brand story, people listen. Many people have a level 10 understanding. A lot of businesses have a level 10 understanding of what it is that they do in terms of complexity. Like a brain surgeon knows the synaptic connections of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex connects with the this and the that. That's a level 10 complex understanding of brain that a brain surgeon has. But the family just wants to know in the waiting room, is my dad going to be okay? Right? And so I think in their best attempts, most businesses take their level 10 complex understanding and they try to simplify it and maybe get it to a 6 or a 5. The problem is the prospect is listening at level 1, 2, and 3. We have the ability to take that message and simplify it to the place where their audience is actually listening.
I love that because I think that resonates with so many different teams and businesses and individuals, because we get so, like you said, we're so wrapped up in the minutia that we lose the sale of whatever we're trying to sell, right? To the person you really need to get to buy, because they need it at that level, that simplicity level. Even if they're higher ranked than you or whatever, it's not a dumb it down. It's simplify it to be consumed by.
Yeah, totally agree. And once you've got that simplicity, you can bring that clarity to digital marketing tactics and funnel. But without it, it's like the tail wagging the dog. You just over explain yourself everywhere. Sometimes when I'm teaching in seminars and workshops, Mariana, I'll reference like a cattle ranch. Think about a cattle. If we were out on a cattle ranch and you grab a branding iron and you brand the back of a cow, you know who owns it. But if you grabbed a second iron on top of the first and a third on top of the second, and so on and so forth, pretty soon you just have confusion. You'd have hamburger. Yet that is the mentality so many businesses take when it comes to internal or external marketing. Well, I got an idea for like a company Slack channel, so let's put that together over here. And we got to do a newsletter. I got an idea. Let's do a newsletter. And boom, we're going to email it this way. And we should have events and corporate trainings and different things. And pretty soon you got 15 different messages working 15 different ways. But if you take the time to clarify your brand message for your culture or for your audience and prospect, creating that clear branding iron, you can bring that iron to social media, to your internal newsletters, to a variety of internal or external marketing tactics. And what it does, it creates consistency. It creates clarity. And that clarity can build over time to build momentum to ultimately communicate and draw eyes and attention to your brand.
That is really, really cool. I love that concept of the cattle ranch. My first reaction was you have a really pissed off cow by that point. And that's true, right?
Yeah,
And once they're pissed off, it doesn't matter who owns them. Nobody's going to be able to master the cow, right? Like, and you want that. You want to be able to create a positive message. You want to create something that people want to be part of.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And so even internally with our organization, I've got 5 on staff. So we're a small business, small agency. But even internally with our team, clarity really does matter. At some point in leadership, your job is to delegate and elevate. You can't do it all yourself. You're going to need to include others in the journey that you can share parts of the work, the planning process, strategy alongside with. And if you haven't done the heavy lifting of creating a clear message, whatever the thing, project or initiative or a mission or core values, these are the things that we serve our team with by creating that clarity first. Clarity is kind. So you got to do the heavy lifting to make it clear for them. And in doing so, ultimately, that is the thing that fuels the broader mission and growth of an organization leadership.
As you've journeyed through your career, you have a staff of 5 now. You've been, on this long journey in the manufacturing industry and all these different things. What is something that you learned early on that a new leader should really take hold of and try to do early on in their leadership journey?
Yeah, my response to that, Mariana, is going to be not marketing. It's going to be about leadership disciplines. Let's just go there for a few moments. How many times in a person's life, in a leader's career, I mean, we'd like to think it's all up and to the right, but it's not. There's peaks, there's valleys, there's triumphs, and there's trials, and all of that comes alongside of leadership. I think a big temptation that I felt early on in my career is to go from one experience to the next with no margin, almost like an adrenaline junkie, or like I could just work harder or just keep going. Today, I wish I would have started moments of reflection and intentionally put those times in earlier on. By God's grace, I've learned that discipline today, but intentionally create pockets of margin in your calendar. Can you schedule and keep an appointment with yourself? Maybe it's a 90-minute block every week for a clarity break that you could just take between you, yourself, your journal, or a notepad to think. Because we've got to have those moments of reflection to metabolize the lesson of those trials or triumphs, because both of them are rich with knowledge if we'll listen. But it's really hard to do that if we just give reflection the table scraps of our schedule. You got to be intentional. Go to the local pond, go to the local library, walk around a park, walk outside, get out of your office, and just sit, think. You'll be amazed if you build in a intentionality and discipline around that. You'd be amazed some of the life lessons and wisdom, leadership lessons that can emerge from just giving yourself time. So I wish I would have done that earlier on, and I'm glad to have that in my disciplines and rhythms now.
How long have you been doing that practice?
I would say I have a 90, so full lifting the hood here. Every 90 days, I try to take at least an afternoon out of the office for prayer and reflection. Every week, I take probably at least 30 minutes of prayer and reflection to plan the week ahead. And at the end of each week, I take another 30 minutes to reflect on the previous week. So intentionally, these are the pockets of time that are kind of built. That discipline in my life, at least the 90-day rhythm, better part of the last 10 years, every 90 days, I've taken at least an afternoon, oftentimes even a full business day. I don't call it PTO either. Now, recognizing some of your listeners might not be at a place where they could just choose to take the day off if they want, but for me, it's not a day off. I am a business owner, but it's not a day off. It is of equal value and importance for me to take that time for prayer and reflection. So every 90 days, I've been doing that for about 10 years, maybe a little bit longer.
Do you block off all technology in that window? Is there, like, how do you create this sanctuary of that space and time?
Yeah, no, really good question. I don't block off all technology, but I don't get into my email, if that's what you're asking. For me, I'm a person of faith. Personally, that's just my faith. I have a faith perspective. I'm a Christian. And so for me, I usually start the morning walking, listening to some worship music and doing something kinesthetic, like walking around a park. I might spend the rest of that morning at a picnic table and just call it a day right there. But at some point, I'm an Enneagram 3 with a 2 wing. If your listeners know what that means, I'm a type A type person. I'm very driven. So at some point, it flips into planning mode from reflection. And I have some ideas that I want to process. And for me, I have found it helpful to have my laptop nearby should I decide to use the laptop for that process. But only if if you've got the self-discipline to not jump into email and to start doing the work. If I ever feel like that's a temptation, I'll just leave the laptop in the car. But yeah, so I've done these at parks. I've done these. I live in Michigan, and so in the wintertime, it's a little bit tight to be outside. But we have a really nice like botanical gardens that has like an inner terrarium type thing that we can walk around in. And so I'll sometimes get a day pass there. I've been known to do these, Mariana, at hospitals in our area. I know it sounds weird, but hospitals have really good food, really cheap if you buy the healthy stuff in the cafeteria. And oftentimes the decor inside of big public hospitals are really, really beautiful and underutilized. I've done this inside of hotel lobbies. I'm not even staying in the hotel. I'll just use the lobby for planning because it's very serene. So you got to get creative. You got to find the spaces that kind of ignite your leadership vision. But after 10 years, I've kind of found what those spaces need to be for me. And so those are the environments that I seek out for that. If I'm in a pinch for all things, personal and professional and time, it'll just be an afternoon. But most, I would say 80% or greater of the time, I try to be at least a full business day.
That is awesome. I think that's really great advice that I needed to hear. So something that I need to lean into, because it is so tempting, even if you block focus time on your work calendar, it ends up being eaten up by catching up on emails and tasks, not actually focusing on a bigger vision.
Well, there's a couple of like little one-liner zingers I'll share with you that might be helpful for you and to your audience. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And that is so convicting. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And so for me, this is an intentionality for me to seek, time with the Lord and to establish those priorities. Full disclosure, business is only a part of the conversation that I have in that day with God. But my role as a husband, as a father, as a caretaker of my physical body and self-care, my role as a friend, my role in local community and ministry, all of those are part of the conversation that day. It's a full business day, and I don't take PTO for it. I consider this to be of equal importance, but my business certainly comes up, but it transcends just business. I think it's important to understand the why behind the what. And for me, my business fits into my faith, not my faith into my business. My business is one extension of a broader picture and mission that Rob Hughes is. And so I got to acknowledge just the sovereignty of all that God has created, and how I'm here to just steward the business that he's entrusted to me for the season. Everything's for a season. And so that's just my way. It's kind of like a CEO board meeting with the real CEO, if you will, that I take every 90 days. But anyhow, that's just me.
I love that. And I would assume that your people that are on your team see that and are enabled to do the same thing. So you're creating this ripple effect of,
Yeah.
hey, you need to have this part of your life. We call it your mindset, your mindfulness, that's your relationship with God, that's a relationship with your family, your friends, etc. If you don't have that, it's one leg of your stool that could cause you to fail. Because if you don't have that, you're wobbly.
Spot on. And motivation is another piece of this, right? That's part of the four-legged chair that you're building with this show and podcast. Like, what is the true motivation? If money is the only motivator to be in business, that can actually, I'm not here to preach, but I'm just saying, like, some of the scriptures that have been really referencing, from my leadership journey, like, money is a really poor motivator. It's cheap thrill, like eating cotton candy for lunch. But like today, I feel like I'm sent on a mission in the marketplace to create a wake of blessing, like a boat moving through water, a wake of blessing that our business leaves behind, whether that's the clients that we serve and help to accelerate their growth, whether it's the team that's been entrusted to work at Hughes Integrated, maybe some of the partners and freelancers that we've engaged with for various projects over time. Even this show and our conversation today, Mariana, is whatever kind of influence that the Lord has entrusted to Hughes Integrated, I want it to create a wake of blessing for those that are to that. And that thought process, I am 100% all in on, and it could only exist because I have clarity that has come from this day away with God in times of really searing that missional purpose, the motivation and the mindfulness, if you will, that has existed. And it wouldn't have been discerned had I not had that margin in my life.
I love that, Rob. And I know that's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. So thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and sharing that part of your vision and how you approach life. If people really want to connect with you, I know we're going to show up, kind of LinkedIn and the website, the podcast. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
Through and through, if it's a direct connection, it would be a LinkedIn connection. You're right. StoryBrandguide is my handle over at LinkedIn, but if you search for Rob Hughes, MBA, you might find me there too. StoryBrandguide is my handle over there on LinkedIn. That's the best way. Truly, I do respond to my messages personally. I interact with my audience directly, and that is probably the best way. Our business is HughesIntegrated.com, which you'll see, and you can certainly check out our marketing agency. Our primary focus there is partnering with growth-minded organizations to help them accelerate growth through digital marketing, and that's really what we do. And then the Thrive Collective with Rob Hughes podcast can be found on all the Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all the things that I'm sure, Mariana, that you're also on, but all of those would be great places, and look forward to connecting.
This was awesome. Those of you that listen know I always end with some things that I wrote down because I always get some really good nuggets. So today, some of the things I wrote out is that you want to be able to prove outcomes. So as you're thinking about how you're presenting ideas, marketing ideas that could be internal, or, if you're in the marketing industry, is that you want to create a story to be able to communicate that. So there's that hero going on a journey. There's a problem that you or your team is trying to solve. And that's how you can best resonate what you want others to learn. And that from a company culture perspective, it's got to be the glue and the DNA that holds together that company or that team. And you want to be able to have that really infiltrate everything you do on a daily basis. And then from a leadership perspective, as you go into leadership, you're a new leader, et cetera, then you want to have to learn that whole delegate and elevate, meaning how do you take some of the things that you did as an individual contributor, you delegate it to your team, thus elevating your team to become bigger and better than just the singular. And then we spent a lot of time talking about having those moments of reflection, that time that you can prioritize you so life doesn't end up prioritizing you. And that's time that you can spend really reflecting on your life. It could be prayer, it could be focusing on your relationships with others or your work time, but really being able to carve out that time and holding that time sacred. Those are some of the things I took away. I'm sure there's a million more nuggets today. Rob, thank you so much for joining us on Might in Motion.
Oh, absolutely honored to invest this time and pray that it's a blessing to those who are listening in. Thanks, Mariana. Thanks for the work that you're doing here as well.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.